Wow, that was strange. I wasn't even, I guess my encoder already took over. Okay, I didn't know I was live that fast. So, what's up? Yeah, you're not working the day shift? We're burning the midnight oil. Cub Dodge. Cub Doggy. Oh, okay. Can't sleep. Yep. Unfortunately, don't have too much problem with that. But sometimes it's better just to get up, right? And do stuff. So let's see what to talk about today. I don't really have a plan. Not that I ever have a real plan, but I usually have some things that I look at. But I kind of let's see. Well, I don't know if there's any new news that from things in the heavens. Usually, you know, what's happened so far is that the next level takes a break around now. It seemed like October had a lot going on, though, with that square object sitting above the sun, as pictured on to the left of my screen, in the middle. And by the way, I don't think I ever talked about what this object is to the left of that square object. And that's Comet Honda in 2017, when it was depixelated. By putting a filter on it. So that's probably the picture that, or close to it, that NASA or JPL got, or maybe the EU. I guess it's possible that they shot it. And it's two objects, right? And I remember a report that they were in orbit around a common center, the same way Pluto is with Charon, and the same way Hale-Bopp was when they depixelated. Well, Hale-Bopp didn't actually tell us that it was depixelated. You know, of course, we're not going to hear that from NASA unless it's a whistleblower or a leak, which they can do that. You know, they don't mind putting out truth in little drips and drabs, and then it basically, you know, goes into the realm of mystery for everybody at the same time. And the next level has an interest in, I believe, in showing us what's really happening behind these pictures. I don't believe they do things and want them to be left a mystery at this time in particular. And that's when all this is happening. Of course, it's simultaneous with the increased technology that's taking pictures and seeing things all the time that people can think were happening all the time. We just couldn't see them because we didn't have the telescopes on them. And that's the way the next level designs it, so that it can be totally denied. Like I was talking to somebody about the vaccination program in the United States and elsewhere in the world, where it's being forced on people. In Australia, I believe they're forcing it on people, even though they had like 13 people or something, or kids, get pretty sick after a MMR vaccine. See, but they can just explain that away and say it was a bad batch, and it might be true that it might have been a bad batch. But most of the people that are in the practitioners' offices, they don't have the time nor the inclination to try to question what they're doing with people. And I'm not saying that there's not a benefit to the vaccination program. T and Doe, I don't remember talking about it. I don't remember they talked about it. But I know one thing is we weren't vaccinated during the time of 19 years I was with them. But then it wasn't pushed so much then in the late 70s, early, and throughout the 80s and the 90s. Or I wasn't aware of it because, I mean, we did have news every day, especially in the late 80s and 90s. But I don't know if it was every day, but it became optional, and so a lot of people didn't pay attention to it. And I think the in-crafters had a time where they watched it, like June Odie and Czech Odie and Liv Odie and Jan Odie certainly kept up with the news, I think, because Doe wanted to know if there were any signals or any things being talked about or any events that T might have been stimulating, or the next level was stimulating when T was in her vehicle. So they kept up with things, and I know that because they brought things to us to see in the media, or to look at and talk about a little bit. I don't remember much of it. I remember Ross Perot came up, and T and Doe were thinking that perhaps he'd be a better choice because he's a businessman. Maybe he'd have a better sense of how to run this country like a business. And what do we got now? We got somebody that's running it like a business. It's a corrupt business, but it's a he's trying to run it like a business to where, all the profits, the more profits. Which, that doesn't, I don't think believe the Democrats mind that at all. I don't think deep down inside they mind that much about. They also want to change the tariff laws and everything. But Obama was actually, it appears from the prophecy, he was basically here to keep the peace, and he did. He managed to oversee the time period of withdrawing troops from Iraq and reducing the troops in Afghanistan. And doing other things, and he played ball enough to where they didn't want to get rid of him. because he played ball with Wall Street and the whole financial crisis. He even takes credit for it, for working out the financial crisis, and I don't doubt that he did. That he worked with people in order to, either make it look good to enough people, so that they wouldn't, try to set up, any kind of investigation. So, the Republicans and the Democrats were in bed with that too. And so he was very effective in that. He made that whole thing go away, so to speak, right? And supposedly started the economy on the mend. And now Trump is taking credit for that, it seems like. And Trump's probably going to do the same thing, but in a different way, but with more aggression. Instead of recovering from what the Republicans set in motion. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or anything. I'm not voting anymore. I voted for the last presidential election. I voted for Obama. But this election was a clear I don't want to have anything to do with any of them. And I'm not, I don't know what, we never did vote for Ross Perot, even though we're considering it. They told us they were thinking about it, and but we never did, and yeah, there were other political things they probably talked about over the years, but I don't remember them right now anyway, and it's not that important anyway. But it's good to know. Well, I shouldn't say it's not that important. It's important to knowing what T and don't put their minds on, and so I wish I could remember more. But I think if the next level wants me to, I think they'll help me remember more. So I'm going to see what's in the chat room. Cub Dodge is saying, sounds like you had an interesting topic last night. I think so. I think there was, talking about Stwody was good. I think I really, and about eunuchs, good old eunuchs, or eunuchs, or, and the chat room questions, are you schizophrenic? Spent a lot of time on how you get involved in Heaven's Gate. Was T God? The demonstration was the demonstration a failed prophecy on T and Do's part? Which I didn't put, my responses. I should put a little bit of a response in there so that people don't have to even watch it if they don't want to. I'm not trying to entice people into listening to these broadcasts. I did that with the other ones. I gave my response to a number of things, a bottom line. But sometimes it's it's just hard to just bottom line something, and and do it justice. Like the demonstration is a big topic, you know, and that's what's used against us a lot, you know, but it's designed that way. It's designed that we have the choice every step of the way. With every little piece of information that comes about from Tiendo, it can be challenging to us in one way or another. And that's the way it should be. Because, I mean, that's not the way it should be, that's the way it is. Because the next level aren't playing games, and they, I mean, they do play games. I mean, I mean, I don't know what they. Well, one game they said they played while they were on Earth still was they would go down a grocery store, they go to a grocery store, and probably where they were shopping anyway, and because I don't think they would do this just to go for a game, but you know, I don't know. That's just my idea of the way things worked. But anyway, they would, I don't know if they would intentionally just pick up an item and read the labels and all that, you know, put their mind on it and put it back, or actually buy that item. And well, my studio, my OBS studio, my OBS studio just did its reconnection thing. I don't know why it does that. And it does it at the oddest times, too. It doesn't look like it's related to disk space or it shouldn't be memory. I don't know what it is. Maybe I should search it down a little bit. Maybe I'd get some clues from other people who experience it. Maybe I need to upgrade to a premium version. If I can get around it, I will. But, so, of course I lost where I was, but I was talking about the demonstration and was it a failed prophecy on Tiendo's part? I talked about yesterday. And in summary, in case somebody's new to this, no, I don't see it as a failed prophecy. Because one thing I didn't add yesterday that I wanted to add, and so I'm glad it came up again, was that one thing Tiendo said about it was that it didn't happen that way because, you know, that way because the students weren't ready. And they also said that but that wasn't the first thing they said about it. What, in fact, that was like, it seemed like that was like an afterthought sometime later. Looks like my video's frozen again. But as long as you got that screen, I think it's cool. I think it's okay. I shouldn't. It doesn't matter that I use those slang words, I don't think. But I don't want to give people the impression that that would be a slang word that Tiendo would use, or that it's wrong. You know, wrong to use it. It's not wrong to use it. There's no classroom right now. So that's. But the rules of behavior and ways are open for anybody to make their own. The best, however they can apply it, and in a relationship formed with the next level if they want to. And of course that's a gradual, not a gradual necessarily a gradual thing. It can be sudden for somebody. It can be you know, and it can be in a stepwise pattern for probably for many, for most maybe, because it was stepwise for me too, even though I joined them suddenly. But none of this reflects who we are necessarily in terms of what our soul has grown to, because it really doesn't matter what our soul has grown to in the past. What matters is what we do with it now. And so all that talk from some of the New Age community, which I'm not against the New Age community, by the way, but they have the same distortions as the Third Age community. And we're kind of like in the, well, I don't know if that's the right numbering system for it, but no, we're in I guess the, yeah, I guess it would be the Third Age. The third trimester, with 2,000 years to an age, and we're in that third trimester. But the New Age is the right. It was new to the. Anyway, I'm tangling myself up with words and thinking. Because I do have a kind of analytical mind, and in my own way, regardless of how accurate it can be, but I can overdo it. Yeah, I mean, well, let me get back on track here, because the demonstration, well, with everything that the next level does and gives us to do and says in prophecy, there's multiple explanations for, that interpretations. And so a number of things can work in that. That's why they give time frames that are pretty open-ended. And even if they're not exactly, like when they put things in the terms of days, when something's going to happen in days, and it's a number like 1,260, like for the two witnesses, or was it 1,230? Now I'm getting that mixed up. But, oh, I don't want to do that. Whoops, I clicked some wrong things on my screen here. Like on verse Revelations 11. It says here, Revelation 11:3 is, and I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Since I'm talking about time frames, might as well put that on the screen as well. Which I'm getting better at this. Holy smokes. I shouldn't say that before I actually get the job done, right? In fact, why can't you see that on the screen there? Oh, it does say that that way. Okay. All right, I can go up high enough. All right, there you go. So the 11:3 in the bottom there, I think you can see it. Yep. So it's 1,260 days. And the "and" is in italics because it doesn't necessarily go there. So it's 1,260 days. As opposed to other places where right above it in the verse 11:2, It's but the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles. And the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months, or 40 and 2 months. Again, the and doesn't necessarily have to be there. So, in that case, in Revelation 11:2, when you look at the meaning of the word month, you see that it's a month, a time of the new moon. But then if you go look at 3376, let me see here. Well, I'd have to actually go to my other software. Which I'm going to do, so that I'm not forcing anybody to have all the software and to have it with them right now. This is the Strong's Concordance, Greek and Hebrew dictionary. So I'll put that on the screen. Oh, I see. My video settings are not good, so you're not going to get it, I guess. Oh, darn it. Alright, well, sorry about that, but, I mean, I could restart the stream, and maybe it would work, but I'm just gonna go through what I was talking about, because I was looking at the word month, and, in case it comes back, the word month actually, like I said, it's a primary word for month. But if you look up right above it, in the number 3375, where the other one was 3376, it shows the same exact word and the same exact spelling and pronunciation in Hebrew and in the English. That is men. And the way the next level is with words sometimes, you know, it might actually be men for a reason. To equate it with people. Okay, but I don't, you know, I wouldn't, based on that alone, I wouldn't want to try to come to that conclusion. But if you then look at the meaning of this other word, men, or main is the way you pronounce it, main, which I have a little twist to, I guess I could, no, I'm not going to go there. But I was just thinking mane of the horse, you know, the mane of the horse, the horse's long hair, and how in the Old Testament, when you took an oath, the oath of the Nazarene, the Nazarite was, you would stay away from drinking probably fermented grape juice, and as an oath, and other things, and you would stop cutting your hair. So before that, they were cutting their hair, and then for that group, they used that as a signal of how long they were taking the oath. Which you could say, you know, isn't that competitive? But it doesn't have to be, but the thing is, it would be something to overcome if we saw it as competitive in a human way. But if it's competitive to stimulate your commitment to your older member, then it's a good competition in the sense of competition, but not for competition's sake, not to try to pass up your older member, because that's ridiculous to even think about. That'd be like a dog thinking that they could pass up their human master, even though it's a different relationship. But, well, between us and our older member Doe and T, it is that kind of a relationship, you know, but within a different framework of having human compared to the next level. And so it wasn't meaning that humans thought like dogs, or that they were limited to think and act like dogs. They're not. They're actually dogs. Canines cannot evolve into the next level. They cannot become next level member the way that the pattern was designed by the next level. Now, I'm not saying that they couldn't have different forms than humanoid, and it doesn't mean that there's not lessons to be learned by dogs that are applicable to the lessons we learn as humans. That's all I believe in the process. If you know, like, I don't know, if a dolphin, T and Doe didn't they didn't deny that the next level could have had other experiments going on at the same time as them, but they knew that theirs was the only experiment to graduate souls into the next level. So there wasn't somebody else doing that. But there could be other people, you know, preparing humans, like, you know, I mean, I can expand it. You can expand it any way you want to go. As long as it's showing evidence of being a next level separation from humanness and overcoming of the addictions that we humans all get into to degrees. You know, then it wouldn't show the signs of being a next level experiment. You know, if it was like, you know, I don't know if this is a good example, but maybe it is, like to walk on coals, fiery coals, and I can't imagine, I can't see anything in Jesus' teachings. I mean, yeah, Jesus walked on water, okay, so you would think that humans could learn to levitate, right, or walk on coals, you know, raise their vibrations so that they could not actually be walking on the coals that much, and so, or they can do it in such a way that they don't feel the pain of it. You know, I guess that's not a big deal because we do generally have calluses on our feet, so I don't see that as necessarily being a big accomplishment. Not that I would do it, because I don't like to tempt fate, or not fate. I don't want to. I'm not trying to prove to anybody that I can withstand physical pain better than somebody else, because it's the mental pain that is the harder pain to overcome. Of you know, being without what we grow to be attached to, and I'm not trying to say that physical pain isn't significant to overcome, I guess, but I don't think that applied to this third trimester of growth. I mean, certainly Tiendo expressed that, you know, they didn't look forward to losing their lives in a demonstration, being killed by somebody. And they would joke about it and say, you know, saying they hoped they would shoot straight. So they wouldn't be left in a vehicle that was, you know, a vegetable, and it would be over quickly. But they'll go through whatever they have to go through, and for their older members' task, because it is of value to humans to see other humans putting their body on the line. And I think that's, you know, a good thing that comes out of being of military service. That when somebody, you know, wants to really do good, and it's the only way that they think they've been raised, you know, or to think that they could trust the government, and the government was going to, you know, not mislead them, and or to fight for their family if they, you know, if they understood that they were being attacked. To me, I think the next level would smile on that at a certain grade in school, and I'm not putting people down for that, because we can skip grades. So, but I don't think in the last grades in school, even that can still be a lesson, I think. So it's not to judge somebody that's been in the military that might be listening to this at some time, and may have even been in combat and may have participated in killing somebody else. I have no awareness that they still aren't capable of being, of overcoming whatever they had to deal with, and not letting that stand in the way of appealing to grow towards the older members in the next level. And maybe the best they can do sometimes is to then become humanitarians after that. I mean, if they don't ever hear about Tiendo, or even if they do hear about Tiendo, but it doesn't, you know, they don't feel like they can tackle separating from the world to the degree that the individuals that joined with Tiendo did, which is very, very hard to do, because the next level is preparing us all for taking steps. And you know, if somebody thought right now that they would have to be thinking about leaving this world by suicide in order to believe in Tiendo, that's upside down. That's upside down. That's not correct. And he even said it in the thing that's in the document that Sam Modi wrote in the Heaven's Gate book. He even talked about how that the only way humans can learn actually lessons is by having a vehicle. And so, and when your older member is not present with you to lead you through that, and you don't recognize your older member is that older member that's leading you through that, and recognize it significantly, to where you demonstrate that by your actions every day, for years even, if necessary. But not necessarily for years. It can be fast also. It just depends on what the next level feels about our efforts. And Jesus taught that too. He taught about that the ones that were called to service in the last hour get the same reward as those that were called to service in the next to last hours. As long as they can make the same grade, and the grade is not necessarily, I mean, it's hard and fast about certain things, yes. But there's always room for growth. And as Tien Do said, or Do said actually, even some of the ones of the 38 that graduated would have to come back to a human condition to finish their overcoming. And anything he said to us in a video, like he did that statement, the students would have heard. I mean, Tien Do weren't shy about telling the truth, even if it meant that it was going to give us some problems, because they knew that that the whole basis of the overcoming process, the metamorphosis into a new vehicle, growing our mind to become viable in a birth into a next level vehicle, requires effort. It requires a lot of effort. And over time, it requires effort too. It's not something that you can just do overnight. I mean, theoretically you can, but that's not, you know, that's just because the next level has no limits on anybody. But the garden grows in stages for a reason. So you're not going to have somebody in the Moses camp that that didn't follow all the rules of Moses and even, you know, rebelled against them, but maybe was still worth saving for the next level. So they gave him another chance when Jesus came around, and who knows, maybe didn't recognize Jesus, but I'm just doing a hypothetical here, and so was given another chance maybe after Jesus left, for instance, and was one of those members of those churches that were related to, that were the 7 churches in those different areas of the Middle East at the time, or among the 70 members of the classroom at that time, or among the 500 that were said to be in the upper room. You know, I think those are just estimates. I don't know if they were counting everybody. And the 5,000 that came to believe. I think Paul talked about the 5,000 though, and so it might have been true though. I don't have any reason to doubt it, because yeah, and so anyway, but oh, so let me finish with this word men, or main, that I was talking about in Revelations 11:7 or 5 or whatever it was. It was 2. Well, I should start with Revelation 11:1. I haven't done that before, so let me go back to that, and I'll say 11:1 was, and there was given to me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. Well, see, the reed, I believe, is the plant. He was given a plant. In other words, he was assigned the human vehicle. and that it resembled a rod in the sense that it, I guess, had a straight spine. But also, this can be, given a reed, could be a writing implement. It could be both. Likened to a rod, meaning having a strong standard, a stiff standard. In other words, you know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. You know, all those rules. And the angel stood and saying, so when the angel stood, that's also saying that this individual that's actually giving him this message is taking a stand, is standing up in a human vehicle. If you actually look at the word stood, it's histemi, which of the same meaning and used for it in certain tenses. Okay, stand, set, establish, stand still, stand by, to cause or make a stand, to place, put, to bid, or to stand by, to set up in the presence of others, to be in the presence of others, in the midst, or to set up in the presence of others, in the midst of, before judges, before members of the Sanhedrin, to place, to make firm. There you go. To make firm is like making, to cause a person or a thing to keep its place, to stand and be kept intact, a family of kingdom, to escape in safety. This is the way it's been used, and a lot more. To stop, to stand, to continue safe and sound, okay. Stand unharmed, to stand ready or prepared, to be steadfast. So this is all human. We're talking about human relationships to the word stand. We're not talking about a theoretical stand only. It's also it's also a mental stand. It's both. One who does not hesitate, does not waver. So that's what this this worker, this crew member, does after the measuring. Well, no, it's part of the measuring. Actually, after he's given the implements to do the measuring, and then the angel is saying, the crew member is saying, and measure, rise. He's saying, rise first. And that means wake up. Arouse, to arouse. E-R-E-I-R-O in the Greek. Egero. Anyway, so it's rise and then measure the temple of God. Okay, now, measure is pretty much just like it sounds. Metrio in the Greek. Interesting that it sounds like meters, right? And not accidents, I don't think. Measure the temple of God. Okay, now what is the temple of God? Is that the location, or is that, you know, Jesus said that his vehicle was his temple. So that means it's the temple for everybody that is, or for the older members. And everybody that's coming with the older members, coming back, all the souls that were coming back, as Jesus said would happen. He said there was going to be a resurrection of the just and the unjust when he came back. And a resurrection means, among other things, come again, stand again, stand up again. Resurrection, because they stood up before, having been with him in the Moses camp when his name was the vehicle's name was Moses, and his father's name was Jehovah. And the younger members of the next level and the students were Aaron and Miriam and what was it? Joshua and I don't know who the fourth might be, but I suspected before, like the four living beings in Revelation. And the four archangels. I forgot their names too. I know Gabriel and Michael. Michael being, I believe it was the same individual that had the task of the next level name that he was given, which means I forgot what it means, but it's in service to God or something like that. But the temple is referring to. It's used a lot of times as naos, as used of the temple at Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem is the city of God's angels, God's crew members, God's students, because angels are potentially students in training. But can also be the older angels, and be considered even the archangels, and also be younger members of the next level. Or older members in the next level. Of course, whoever. Well, when they talk about the older members, I believe they talk about them as mighty angels. Because remember, it's crew members, it's messengers, it's because that's the task they're doing. To deliver information, to prophesy is to deliver information from the next level. You're inspired by the next level to tell the truth. And there are false prophets as well, of course, and that's false speakers, of people that are speaking, but it's not the truth. And in fact, the fact that Moses is the one that said, how do you tell the difference between a true prophet and a false prophet? The false prophet, what they say won't come true. And there was an individual not too long ago that was headed towards, that thought he believed in Tiendo, even though he knew that it was a work in progress, as it is for everybody, because it's all a matter of degrees. But when he came upon, I think I quoted that scripture somewhere, and somehow he came up with it a long time ago. I think I used that scripture sometime, as far as I remember. But I don't know, maybe I wrote about it on my blog somewhere recently. But he sent me an email and he referred to my use of that scripture and how I was using it to describe the fact that T and Do said a few things in the beginning that didn't come to pass exactly the way they thought they would. And so, and they were big things. And the demonstration was one of them. And leaving on a spacecraft within 5 years was another one. And another one was, well, no, those are the only two, really, because the other ones you can't, I mean, even those you can see in a different way, but if those become the things that break, the, you know, the camel's back, so to speak, then that's something that the individual would have to choose whether they wanted to ask the next level for help to see it the way they see it so that they can continue. If they don't want to fight that booger, then that's fine. Then that individual perhaps not ready at that time to take that next step of going further with the teachings. Because we can always go further with the teachings, and there's all manner of things can be used as lessons. And we need to be faced with everything. But, you know, those things to me didn't mean anything. I didn't have a second thought about continuing with T and Do after that. Never did after that. You know, years later, even though I knew that happened, and I knew it was a change, it's like I knew that there was going to be changes. T and Do said right from the beginning that change is the name of the game. And I remember when they told us that that all humans don't have souls, and that the vehicles can function without a soul, and they can go, you know, just fine. And then what they said about that at the time, actually, they said that this might not be 100% accurate, but it works for right now. And then they came back, probably days, you know, after that, you know, maybe a week. I don't know exactly, but it was a short time. And they said that to stop thinking about it that way, as that humans don't have souls. And so that became another test. so you know, so T and Do put their money where their mouth is all the time, but people don't know it because none of this gets out to the press. What I mean by that is that they didn't hesitate to say whatever they felt was instruction to say, even though they knew that it was probably going to be a test for somebody. And they didn't want to put somebody to a test that they couldn't handle. And they said that the next level doesn't do that. They don't give us tests we can't handle. But that doesn't mean that it's easy to handle them. And it can take time to come back up to speed to be able to handle certain tests. And that's why individuals left, they came back, they left, they came back, they left, they came back. That didn't happen often. Rick Cody did it, you know, 3 or 4 times. And Do stayed in touch with him, and he did tasks for him because he knew he still loved his older member. And others left because of, you know, sensuality. One individual left, Windody, and she married a policeman because she worked at Denny's in San Antonio, I think it was. And she met somebody, and and she ended up leaving and marrying him. And then they got divorced, and then Stwody was still in the group, I think. So she still had contact somehow, and indicated she wanted to come back. I'm not sure how that happened exactly, because we didn't put out any public anything, you know. So she must have had a way to get in touch, and so she did. She came back, and I was assigned to be her partner. And Stwody was one of the 38 that laid down their vehicles in 1997 as part of the bigger group, right, 38. So, and then when she was my partner, I remember one time I was in the upper bunk and she was in the bottom bunk in the same rest chamber. And I think this was before that she left, though. Remember, I looked down at her and she was like beaming. And I might have been like, I was sort of attracted to her vehicle, for sure. My vehicle was. And so maybe that's the reason I looked down at her. But you know, she was awake and beaming back at me. So it was like, whoa. You know, so I don't know where it started. You know, whether she was, you know, dealing with the same influence as I was, and so she was, you know, attracted to me. Anyway, but then she left the group, and not too long after that, I think the way it went, and then she was reassigned my partner when she came back, and then neither of us, I think, ever had that kind of experience again. Even though I kind of felt like my vehicle was still attracted to her, and she, at that point, she was kind of like, because it was a few years later, I think she was kind of looking up to me in a sense because I had stayed in the classroom, and we had a test together. Well, actually, I got her a job at the place where I was working at the Fur's cafeteria in Dallas, or it was Fort Worth. It was either Dallas or Fort Worth. I don't remember. And I was like considered to be a little bit of like an associate manager. Basically, I just kept everything looking good in the food. You know, I would call back to the kitchen and tell them we needed more potatoes or whatever, and they'd give me a new tray of potatoes and I'd put it in there. So I didn't really do any management duties except for managing the line, as they called it. But she got a job like bussing tables and maybe doing a little bit of waitressing. They did very little because it was a cafeteria, so and cleaning up and stuff. And so we went to work together and then came back together. And anyway, but I'm just giving you a little history of the way that individuals, you know, were tested all the time, and left because of it, and then were given opportunities to come back. I don't doubt for a minute that the next level could have sent her to some place where the next level knew there was a supply run, for instance. You know, like a store or something. Or some members that left or were instructed to leave ended up going to towns where they knew we were at times. Like Stwody. Stwody was among the 19 individuals that T&O separated from the larger group. And let's see. And when Tiendo separated them, they came back to the larger group and said that we made the first cut. You made the first cut. And this was 1976, so the group, the cult, barely got going. It was like a let me think of what period of time that was exactly, because it would have been July, August, September or October. Maybe October or September or October or November, I guess. It could be. I mean, they could get flurries because we got snowed on. And that's why we left Wyoming. Not a little bit. It was just a little bit. It wasn't much. So I think it was in the fall of 76, that would be. And I joined in the early fall of 75. So it was just a year later. They were already separating individuals that wanted to be with them. And even were with them throughout the 6 months or so in Vitavu, the Earthborn. In Wyoming, in the Medicine Bow National Forest, just east of Laramie, because I know there's a Medicine Bow National Forest that's, I think, southwest of Laramie as well. It's separated, but which is weird, I guess. But I guess that's the jurisdiction they decided for it, for whatever little bit of funding they have for it. Because there was a ranger that would go drive through the loop every once in a while. It was a dirt road loop. And that was the only thing that was there. The sign, Vitavu, and the dirt road loop was the only thing that was there at the time. I don't know what's there now, but I plan to visit it sometime. So, I got down the stream there to to know where I need to come back to. I was talking about Windodi, and I was talking about before that about how all these things are tests, and then Durodi, right? So Durodi. Well, when they ended up losing touch with Tiendo, at first they stayed in touch with them. I didn't know about it, but I learned about it later because Do told the story, and that Do said that he and T even went, because when we moved into houses in 1980 or so, they were instructed to also do the same thing, to get an apartment or something, or a place to live. The remaining ones that had been camping someplace up until that point. Anyway, so I know T and Do were in touch with them a little bit after they moved into an apartment, the ones that were left. But then, I don't know what happened, but they lost touch with them. But they somehow learned, well, they knew the town that they were in, but they lost track of exactly how to be in touch. And but they knew the town they were in, and Do said that T and Do went back to that town looking for them, and learned later that they were on the very street where they were living. So it would look like the next level didn't really want them to be reconnected at that point. But then what happened after that was that we were living in Amarillo, Texas. And we were living in trailers. We had these big 40-foot trailers that were fifth wheel trailers. We had at least 2 of those fifth wheelers with 2 pullers. T and Doe had one where they lived in by themselves. And then there was Sat 3, which was Satellite 3, which was like the command center students that were working in the command center. Like Mercodi was one of them, and Serafodi maybe at that time. Well, maybe not at that time. Serafodi might not have been. I wasn't part of that group at that time. And so I was in another trailer that was a big, long trailer. And then we had another trailer that was just for meetings that pulled out. And we were all parked in a trailer park, and then there was another trailer that was as big as the one I had. So we had like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trailers, I guess. And they all had their own pullers. And so we're camping there, and we got jobs. And I got a job at the Three Thieves Steakhouse, which was right next to the Big Texan, which is famous for providing like a 72-ounce steak. And if you could eat the steak and all the trimmings with it, you got it for free. you probably then croaked after you left there, but I guess some people did it. Anyway, but 2 students worked at the hospital in Amarillo, Sawyer and Norrody, as receptionists and maybe another kind of job there. That's the way I understand it. And I was there at the time, of course, but I didn't know a lot of details about where people were working, and there was no reason to share that with me. The next level, T and Doe's classroom was very neat to know. So you didn't know what was going on with a lot of things, unless T and Doe had a meeting and talked to us about it, or you were involved with the projects that they had. Or if it was a project that they wanted everybody to know about, then they would tell everybody that there was a project. That like Dan Sodi was assigned to a project to kind of rewrite the Bible. But he never followed through on it much, and it got canceled. And then he ended up leaving the group. Not too long after that, but I don't know the reasons for that. But so Dorody ended up going to that hospital for some reason. I don't know why. And he recognized it was either Norrody or Sawyer in that hospital. Or I think it might have been Sawyer, and then Norrody worked in another department, probably in maybe something in the office or something. I think that's the way it was. Because I know she wasn't a nurse or anything like that. Although Liv might have worked there for a little while as a nurse. I have a little vague memory of that. But anyway, this was like 1980. I want to say 1 or 2. Or even 3. As late as 3. And so I So anyway, so Durodi went to that hospital and recognized Norodi or Sawyer and ended up, because of that, they called back to the craft and ended up talking to T and Doe. I don't know if they called or not, because I don't know if there was a phone in comm center. I don't know if they could have got a phone at that campground. So I don't know how they got in touch, but just want to try to be accurate. And as a result, Durodi was invited back into the classroom. And then he said that there was another individual among those 19 that told Durodi that, because he was looking for us, he was looking for the group, said that told Durodi that if he ever did find a group, he wanted to know about it because he wanted to rejoin also. And so they got in touch with Stwody, and he rejoined. And both of them are on the exit videos as among the 38. And Stwody left again after that. And he was living in Dallas. And I think he had a... that's when he got back in. He got in touch with his stepsister, I think, was Even Odie. And then when the Beyond Human tapes became public on the satellite dish, and one was sent to Bran Odie and Annie Odie, who were living in Dallas in like a halfway situation that was originally set up for Bran Odie while we were living in other parts of the country, in Arizona and New Mexico, in Colorado, I guess, maybe too, because she was there for a number of years. And that I do know about because I actually helped her move in and relate to her. I was sometimes a check partner for like June Odie, who might have been the primary on the task of keeping up with Bran Odie and relaying information to her so that she could keep up with the tapes of the meetings that were made. And sometimes T and Doe would visit her. I'm trying to think if T was in a vehicle when they visited, when Bran Odie did that. I don't remember clearly what year that was, when Bran Odie first went to Dallas. So I can't say for sure. But I know Doe and helpers visited her. Yeah, I think that's what I'm remembering. Doe and Liv Odie and Jan Odie visited with Bran Odie a number of times. We don't know how many times because, well, I don't know. Some others might have known. But even when I was an overseer, craft overseer of the South Craft, when there was a North Craft where Doe was living at the time, which I was also a member of the North Craft for a while with Doe living there, but then I was assigned to be the overseer of the South Craft when I had a job in South Denver. And I didn't know anything that I didn't need to know. For the tasks that I was doing. And that's the way it is in the next level as well. We were told. We were taught. And so yeah, so Stwody ended up rejoining in 1993, I believe, in the early part of 93, with a bunch of others. Because Tall Odie was also out of the classroom, and I think he had a sports car and a girlfriend, and then when he saw the Beyond Human series tapes, he wanted to rejoin also, because they knew where Branody was, and so they were, you know, kind of loosely in touch. And Coyote was there at that time, and he had his own apartment because he couldn't get along with Branody and Annie Odie. And Annie Odie became named Anil, A-N-L, Anil Odie. You changed her name when she rejoined the classroom with Bran Odie. I understand from Stu Odie, who I recently talked to, that Annie Odie was the youngest member, and he reminded me of that, because I remember she came into the classroom after T had said that the gate was closed, the harvest was closed. In April 21st of 1976, she said that. So, let's see. And that's when, the same time in 1992, or early 3 actually, because it was after the Beyond Human tapes came out in 93, that's when they became public. Even though the work was done, there might have been some, it might have gone up on the internet, not the internet, the satellite dish in 92 for the first time. I'm not sure. But what I was going to get at was that Juan Odie had joined in 1975, and he was outside the classroom, I think, 2 times. And the first time he came back in the same time as the others did in 1992 or 3. And he was in Venezuela, where he was originally from, but he was going to school in Corvallis, Oregon, and so he went to the Walport meeting in Corvallis and joined from there. And then he went back, when he left the group, he went back to Venezuela, and he saw that video on the satellite dish, the Beyond Human series, but we weren't in touch with him then. But we gave a P.O. box on those videos. And so he wrote to it, and a number of people wrote to it, actually, and we actually had correspondence with some people because of that, being on the satellite dish at that time. And then when the USA Today ad went up on USA Today, we had a P.O. box there. It was Total Overcomers Anonymous, we were called then, for the public. And which, you know, shows the beginning of the 7th trumpet blowing, which is actually part of the 7 thunders, where the trumpet blowing is the last thunder. It becomes the 7th trumpet blowing. That's the way I think about it anyway. And there's evidence of that right in Revelations 11. 10 and 11 outline that whole progression. Well, 9 actually starts it. When they opened the key to the bottomless pit, that was during the 50s, no, 40s and 50s, by my calculation, because I worked back from, you know, T&O coming public in or meeting together in the 70s. That's the way Doe used to say it, just in the 70s. He was very rarely would say an exact date. I can't remember him actually saying an exact date. It was always about this, or less than this, or less than 6 weeks, or a couple dozen. He would say, rather than say 24. Let's think if more of that I want to go through, since I went down that avenue. I should actually take notes of that. Yeah, so Kodoti, he was offered to rejoin, but he didn't want to. So he stayed in his apartment, and I ended up visiting him in 1995 when I was traveling around the country visiting with all the ex-members, all the dropouts. Well, not all of them, but, you know, the ones that had been in the group for a long time. And Kodoti was one of those, and a couple of years ago, his vehicle, he exited his vehicle by, I think he had an illness of some sort. It wasn't by his own hand, because he didn't believe in T&O anymore when I met with him in 1995. Anyway, so, Brandon Odie. Brandon Odie ended up being one of the 38, and so did, like I said, and so did Dur Odie and Steel Odie and Wind Odie. I talked about somewhat. And Flex Odie was Wind Odie's vehicle's mother. And she left the group, I think, after Wind Odie did. Because let's see, I might be wrong about that. I'm not sure exactly. But then she was, I guess because Wind Odie left and then visited with her, they stayed in touch, or maybe they stayed in touch anyway. And Flex Odie ended up being offered to rejoin at the same time as everybody else did in '93. And she brought with her her childhood sweetheart, who she, since being out of the classroom, had married. And his name became Abel Odie. Abel Odie. You know, like Abel. And they were, at that point, they were in their 80s, both of them. And so I don't think she's alive anymore, because that was 1993, so they would have to be well over 100 now, I guess. Well, so yeah, I've got to ask Mark about that, about whether Flexody and Ableody are still in their vehicles. I mean, I guess it's possible. So, but Doe then said about Flexody and Ableody that he said that Ableody was a sweet soul, and Flexody, was anyway. But the problem was that we were a pretty tight crew at that time. We were like down to like 24 members, or maybe at that time it was 25 or 6 or no, I think it was like 25 maybe. Yeah. Because Ann Doty would have been still in the classroom then, but where Pam already left right about that time. I think she left in '92 when the Beyond Human series first came out. Anyway, but and so Doe said that since we were such a tight crew, and that meant, moving quickly and remembering things, and, being able to follow instructions well without changing them, and be able to, do tasks, and keep up with your partner. And they couldn't be partners anymore, being a man and wife in the world, so they had to be with other people, and if those other people had too much trouble with them being able to, if they were having health issues, I don't know exactly what their problems were, but Doe ended up saying that they weren't leaving the classroom, but they were being assigned to do a task back where they were living in Missouri, and that they could be of service from there when we go public, because we were planning at that time to go public in '94, face-to-face again. We had a couple meetings we had a couple trial meetings in 1993, too, actually, and there was, Junody and I were assigned to go to hold a meeting in Denver, and Chuck Odie, I forgot who our partner was, were assigned to hold a meeting in Dallas, Texas. And so we did that, and at the time we stayed with Rick Odie and Jen Rohde, who was Rick Odie's girlfriend when he was outside the class, or partner. I don't know what, how close they were, but I think, they were kind of separate by that time. And Rick Odie wanted to rejoin again when we went to Denver there, and so he did rejoin. And then he was on the road with us, and he was the one that took a lot of the camera footage of class members eating and riding in the van and next to each other, filming through the window on the freeway. Which a number of people have probably seen, and that I don't have that footage. I mean, the original footage of it. I guess I could probably strip it off of those videos that were done by Sergio Myers. I don't know. I never tried to do it. I wouldn't mind having it because, you know, I mean, it might seem like it's an ego thing for me, but I'm in a number of them, and there is a crew that's doing a story on me, saying that I'm an interesting person that doesn't get any press, so because I have an interesting story, not an interesting person, but I have an interesting story, which I darn right do, and so it's not really an ego thing at all, but I should be able to. Mark should even be willing to give them to me. So I ask him about that too. And if he doesn't do it, then that's the way it is. That's fine. I don't have to have those materials. Anyway, so let's see if I want to say any more about that. Gave you a bunch of history there. For you know, people are always interested in when I can say anything about the students, and I mean, I can say a lot about every student, but you know, I don't really want to talk about their weaknesses. You know, I mean, they had the same weaknesses everybody else had. You know, whatever they were weaknesses, just like I had and have. And so it's not the next level way to dwell on that, on our weaknesses. The only reason I talk about them sometimes is because, you know, it's necessary to understand what they are for the next level. And, you know, but I don't know what codotes was, or aniotes, or celotes was, or durotes, or branodie. I know she was outside the classroom because having a hard time conquering her demons that had her, you know, her boogers. We called them boogers. We didn't call them demons. That's the word that T&O gave us for them. And her vehicle was crippled with osteoporosis, and she was on medications. She was on progesterone. I remember that. And actually Alex Odie and Song Odie also spent some time in a halfway situation with the Bran Odie, but didn't last very long for them, and they came back into the classroom even before the others did, because that happened in like 1988. See, so Coyote actually went 1988 or 9, maybe it was 9. He went to the halfway situation in Dallas, and I can remember that because it was at the time when Doe was writing the 88 update, which ended up being sent out to a bunch of people in like UFO groups, like MUFON and you know, Walt Andrews. They were in touch with, and Whitley Strieber, and several other UFO researchers. The 88 update was sent to, and none of them had anything good to say about it. because they followed up with them. Because they actually talked with them on the phone, some of them. I don't know for everybody as a fact that they were talked to on the phone, but I'm pretty sure of it. And I have evidence of talking with Whitley Strieber, because I was Dan Stwody's check partner when he was talking to Whitley Strieber on the phone. Because we always had two people on the phone. We had two phones, with jacks, everything to split the lines. Sometimes we had two phone lines too. And we would answer the phone with two people as well. And then we would stay on it unless Tiendo said we only want to talk to somebody, and then the other person would get off. But even when we called back to the families, we were two people on the phone. And we wanted to have a partner on the phone with us. I did. So again, that would be another test. Right? I'm expecting to hear from the 4 individuals watching this. Yeah, right. I don't know. I'm not expecting anything from you all. But I guess I might be in tune with somebody. I don't know. But because the whole way the next level set up the classroom was the overcoming process required having people in partnerships and working in crews, because in the next level you're going to be working in crews and sometimes probably in partnerships as well, as potentially evidenced by the story of Lot, where there were two individuals that came to Lot, and the townspeople got wind of it, and Lot was living in his house with his 2 daughters, and anyway, and the townspeople got wind of that there were these 2 individuals there, and came out to his house and were demanding to see them, and Lot rather than and they ate with Lot, and well, I don't have to go through the whole story because I probably don't remember all the details of it that well, but I know that Lot had the conflict, and they were going to break the door down and come in there and take them by force. And so I know Lot offered them his daughters, which to me was really kind of an honorable thing to do for somebody. He really identified with those next level members to do that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that was. I don't think the next level would have let that happen. Just like with Abraham. Abraham was willing to take the life if the Lord was telling him to do it. But the Lord didn't have him do it. There's a big difference there. Because, I mean, we do have to overcome our relationships with but see, that can get misconstrued because of people not knowing that Abraham was an older member of the next level, potentially, or an older student member of the next level. And that the relationship was real between Abraham the Elohim at that point. Just like it was real to Tiendo, just like I feel like it's real to me. But I know that if I was given, I couldn't imagine taking the life of somebody. And I remember when I talked about that in the last broadcast, that I wondered about that when Doe was talking about provoking the government, not by having any violence against them, but by appearing to be violent against them by having a weapon that could actually fire a bullet out of, and you know, and firing it above their heads or something. I don't know exactly what the next level would have had us do, if that was even going to come to pass. But I mean, if that's the way that, if it comes down to that, it wouldn't be a wrong thing to do for somebody, according to Doe, which he wrote in an article that was called "Dying for God," which I provided in the packets I gave, that talked about, you know, if there was no way to leave for some reason, and somebody didn't feel that they could take it upon themselves to leave by exiting their vehicle, which I'm not proposing to anybody, by the way. I'm proposing the opposite. Stay in your vehicle and work for Tiendo. Overcome the things that you need to overcome. Go as fast as you want. But and if that becomes leaving your vehicle because of somebody else's hand, so be it. But don't look for that. Don't try to make that happen. Don't provoke it. I mean, well, I guess I'm saying, you know, that even if you did provoke it without harming anybody else, which would be a key thing, that would, the next level wouldn't look down on that. My understanding from Doe. Wow, that's a difficult subject to talk about, because I know the influences, hate, they would use that against me. You know, I'm sure you could take it out of context, you know, what I'm saying here. I might have to, well, so be it if that's what happens because of that. And because it's going to happen one way or another, as long as I keep talking about it, unless my vehicle croaks before that. Doe considered all the ways of leaving the vehicle. He knew that it was potential that he could leave his vehicle before us. Tiendo even started to talk about that. Tiendo together in 1977, approximately, I think it was. Or 8. I think it was after Tiendo told us that we needed to give them our mind, our will, not our mind, our will. You need to give us your will. And I didn't realize how significant that was for her to say that. Because I just wasn't in tune with what she was dealing with and what Doe was dealing with. And what kind of test that would have put some through. It didn't put me to a test. I don't know if I was just oblivious to the meaning of it. I think that's part of what it was. That I knew that was the case right from the beginning. I didn't have any question about it from the beginning. So it didn't surprise me to hear that, as well as it didn't. I already have said what some of the things that gave me trouble were when those compared the next level to the Borg. You know, I didn't express it, and it didn't give me trouble for very long. But at first, when I heard it, it was like, wow, really? Ooh, I don't like that sound of that. You know, I kind of had that feeling. You know, as if we were going to be robots. But then right away, I knew that we weren't going to be robots, because we weren't robots in the classroom. We didn't have any, you know, repetitiousness to our, we did have repetition, but it was by our own effort to listen to the tapes over and over again. Even though sometimes they assigned us to re-listen to a certain tape, they didn't ever assign us to constantly be re-listening to tapes. And they could have assigned that. And that would have been more brainwashing, you know, more their instigation of the washing of our brains, okay? They could have done that. But that would have been doing it for us. They wanted to see us exercise the effort to grow as fast as we wanted to grow. So I would often see Stwody listening to tapes, and Stwody was as busy as anybody as an overseer of the craft at times, and overseer of the Neutral Lab. And I mean, there was constantly tasks to do when you had that kind of task, and for everybody there was constantly tasks to do. I mean, even if it was listening to the tapes, that would be considered a task. Or we were at one point Doe had us transcribe the tapes, and we didn't. I don't know how far they got with that, because I don't have those. And Mark and Sarah would have been either on the computers that were left behind, or in the Rancho Santa Fe house, or they would have been in the storage locker that Rick Cody went to empty. Mark and Sarah were given the task primarily, but they were also told in the letter that if they didn't feel to do it, that Rick Cody and Stwody can do it. And Stwody had joined the classroom in 1975, but he left pretty soon after that. And then he was living in his car, and he was in Seattle for a number of years. And I got in touch with him in 1995, and he wanted to know how to get in touch with the class, because he wanted to find them. And he did find them. I told him a little bit about what we were doing, where we were, like in Phoenix area, or Scottsdale, or Paradise Valley, or I told him how to find Doe, and so he ended up did. And so Rick Cody and Stwody went to the storage room, and Doe had left instructions with Merck Cody and Sarah Cody in that same letter, or the same letters, because there were a number of letters that Merck Cody turned over to Rick Cody, because he didn't want to do the task, and they even crossed out their names on one of the letters. I also have Rick Cody's letter and a letter that went to other people, and I don't have a letter that went to Rio though. But let's see. But so when I went to the storage locker, the first thing in the locker was according to what Rick Cody what Carlin said, Riccoti said, when he went to the storage locker, that the cases of tapes, they were about, a foot by 7 or 8 inches by 3 or 4 inches deep for all those audio tapes. For, 484 audio tapes is the way I understand it. Anyway, so however many cases there were, only probably, 10 or 15 or 20 tapes fit in a case. So they were stacked right in the front of the storage room, in front of, clearly in front of everything else that was in the storage room. So, and there were some computers in there as well, but Riccoti didn't take them. They got spooked somehow. And because they were supposed to take the truck that was in another storage room and use it to fill up the truck with the contents of that storage before the authorities would get to it. But Riccoti got spooked, and Ascoti, and so they just took the tapes. And then ended up Mark and Sarah wanted the task back after that. So they wanted the tapes back from Riccoti. And Riccoti didn't trust them, I think, because of the way they turned the task over to him. And so he started copying them. And he started formatting the Blue Book. It's called the Blue Book, which came before the Purple Book that's sold by Mark and Sarah on the Heaven's Gate website, which is pretty much the same material. I learned about that from Pip Odie. Who left the classroom in around 1988 or so, I believe, if I remember correctly. I just recently talked to him too. And even though I talked to him in 95, I met with him in 95 when I was traveling around. I met with Riccoti then again, and Ascoti, and Dan Sodi, and Cododi, and Flex Odie. I didn't see Abel Odie. And Park Odie, and Pam Odie, and Hav Odie, and Arth Odie. Pip Odie's still a believer in Tiendo, 100%. And so is Stu Odie, and so is Carl Odie. And I guess Merc Odie and Seraph Odie still are. I don't know for sure exactly, because they've said some things that were the opposite of things that Do taught, Tiendo taught. Like even Do taught about the Heaven's Gate name. They say there's no they told reporters that there was no heaven and no hell. And I mean, if you're gonna say that, you gotta say a lot more. If you're gonna say that it's not the same heaven that the humans think of as heaven, a lot of the Christians think of as heaven, or the Jews, or the Muslims, and I guess the Buddhists, because they have their own form of thinking about heaven, nirvana or paradise, or of course now it's morphed into heaven on earth, everybody's thinking that way, kind of. That there's going to be heaven on earth, which is impossible. Because heaven as the abode of the next level can't be on earth. Even in the physical form, heaven means the elevated areas above the earth. And so you can't have the sun, it can't be on the earth. Just practical interpretation. Common sense a lot of times is the more accurate interpretation of things. It's the more accurate truth. What's true, truth isn't the spiritual concept. Truth is what is real. And the human kingdom isn't real. T and used to say that. Well, I actually remember T saying it more. Although she called the world the real world relative to the way the classroom was taken out of the world, and now we're living in this very protected environment. We didn't have to go through raising kids and keeping a job and paying for food and doing all those things. And that was the real world, according to T. But we were taken out of the real world to get a different lesson plan, while humans were going through that same lesson plan that they were going through. Because it was time for those souls that were taking those vehicles to leave, if they could cut the mustard. Yeah, I don't know why Tall already left. I didn't mention him. I forgot now why Pip already left. He only left one time. Arody is actually somebody that was in the classroom in 1976, maybe from 1975, and because I wasn't there when he joined, but he ended up leaving not long after music was canceled. Tiendos instigated music. I talked about it in the last live stream. We had guitarro and classical things, pieces, and Gilbert and Sullivan. And it was optional listening, and I already got a lesson for it because he was putting too much of a priority on listening to the music when he could have been doing other things associated with his growth in the classroom, like listening to audio tapes. And he would be, I would see him like in the meeting room where the audio, the stereo system was. I would see him sitting there by himself a lot of times listening while other people were, doing tasks. So that, in a sense, that was a setup, but it didn't mean anything to me to listen to music, even though I was a musician before I joined. I mean, it doesn't take being a musician to enjoy music, of course. I know that, but you would think that I had more of a I needed to get it out of my system. I had to do that in order to be fulfilled, which I guess I didn't. Although when I joined, I brought my flute with me. I had 2 flutes at the time. I gave one away, and I sold some other instruments that I had, and then I brought the better flute with me, and I remember being tempted to play it once, and I think I did pick it up early on. This is before Vitavu, so it was within that, September to July, or no, September to maybe June. So close to 9 months, I guess, but that I was outside the classroom and by myself a lot of times, not by myself, with my partner. I was never by myself. But I remember picking up the flute one time and trying to play it, and I couldn't blow it. I couldn't get anything out of it. And it's funny that I'm not sure if I'm remembering that from a real event, because I know I also had the dreams that I was picking up a flute and trying to play it and nothing would come out. So I'm not so sure that I ever did actually play it. Or if I did play it, I would just play a couple notes. I didn't play it that well at that time. I'd only been playing it for about a year before I joined with T&O. But, and then we ended up, yeah, I actually sold it. Wow. The dreams came after I sold the flute. And so I couldn't have played it, because I didn't play it before I sold it. I know that. I remember that better now. Because I sold the flute when I was in Phoenix, I think, with my partner. At that time, we were in a group, having been disembarked from Chicago, which I talked about in the last broadcast, and more detail of. But so I sold the flute for, I don't know, what, maybe $75. And I bought a car with that $75. And the car barely ran. But it seemed like we needed a car at that point because we didn't have one. So it was enough money to, I guess, register it as well. And so I ended up driving it away, and it broke down on the way to Berkeley. Because we were told at that point, in the last meeting that we gave in Prescott, Arizona, where a bunch of people joined from, when I was still part of the group, that was that Stwody was the overseer of, or I don't know what they called her at that point, but I got distracted by something I remembered, and now I don't know if I'm picking up on what I was talking about. I'm past 2 hours here. I want to try to keep these broadcasts to 2 hours, but I need to go back to the chat room. So maybe I talked enough about that, or let's see if there was anything that I really needed to finish there. Yeah, if it was, it'll come back another time, if it was important, or it comes to mind at another time. So I'm going to go to the chat room. About what, okay, in the chat room, about what the group didn't do. Oh, about what the group didn't do. I'm not remembering what that was right now, so I'm going to go on to the next one by Kyle. Sawyer, what made you start using these photos this last Sunday? I believe you started then. What do these mean? Also, I have 13 vaccines. Is that okay? Wow, 13 vaccines. You just received them? 13 vaccines? I don't know. I'm not saying that vaccines are, you know, not useful or not beneficial, and especially to adults, you know, or young adults. It doesn't matter, you know. But there's some evidence that that when they're given to the young, like 7 years old and younger, they can have some very bad effects, especially if when that individual receives the vaccines, there's some evidence that if they have something else taxing their immune system at the time when that happens, that can become part of the bigger the reason for the problem to surface. And so even if they maybe have a cold, you know, or a flu, it might not even be able to be seen by somebody. You know, I guess that's possible. We don't know exactly. I mean, and nobody knows, I don't think. But I mean, people keep on examining this in the alternative community. You know, it's called the alternative health because as if the other health is the real health, and the alternatives are not the real health. When I know for a fact that the alternatives, among the alternatives, there is plenty of things to do to stimulate the immune system to be able to ward off disease naturally by food and herbs and supplements, and you know, but that can go crazy too, to where we can go crazy with that, and you know, and there's a lot to be said about all that subject, and I do have a lot of experience with it. That started in the classroom in the 90s, and we produced the book, The Transfiguration Diet. So, so I'm not saying that there's going to be anything wrong with you having 13 vaccines. I'm not trying to instill fear in anybody about that. So the photos, if you're still listening, which you might not be, but okay, well, I've used them before, but I just haven't done many live streams like this. But I also use them in some of the videos that are posted on my channel. And so it wasn't just out of the blue that I decided to do it last Sunday. But the reason I did it last Sunday, actually, if that's when I started again, was because of the square object to the left of center, to the far left of the screen, in the middle, which was an object that was photographed by the SOHO satellite that NASA and JPL have taking pictures of the sun 24/7, taking video of the sun. And so these are some frames from that. And the top left corner of that screen is the sun, and right above it is a tiny, tiny dot, which is that square object when it's blown up. And to the right of that square object, kind of right in the middle of the screen, is a little piece of the sun, like right above Las Vegas. And right above that is that same object, but a little bigger magnification. But if you actually could see that close up, you can actually see that it's the same object as that square with the tail behind it. Or it looks like it could be. So that was all presented by Scott Waring on his YouTube channel, UFO information, I think something. It's W-A-R-I-N-G. And thank you for his work on that. He's done a lot of work with objects on the sun, and I've got another screen that shows some of them. And while I'm talking about the sun, this object on this picture on the far right at the top of the screen, above my head, is green because that's the filter they put on it in order to, you know, bring out the color of the white object more, I guess, or whatever they were doing. I don't know why I don't know why I used the green. I didn't intentionally use it, even though, you know, it can be associated with the green horse in the prophecy of Revelation 6:8, which was said in most of the translations as the pale horse, but pale isn't the proper word used there. Green is the primary word, that chloros, like chlorophyll, you know, like green. Represents. Anyway, so, and there's some examples of that in the other ways that that word is used in the scripture. So, in the records. Tiendo didn't use the word scripture at all. They used to say records, or they would say what Jesus said, or what Moses said, or what the Lord said. And they also talked in terms of having their Heavenly Father, and that He was Do's father. Do said that. Do said that T was Do's father. T didn't say that she was his father. Talking about the souls that took those vehicles over in 1972 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Because it's a process. Taking over a vehicle is a process, and bringing next level mind through it is also a process. And I had, since you may have not been here before, I had the fortunate gift to be a fish that was caught in the sea using the truth as the bait, and that I took to, me being the fish. And I swallowed the bait, hook, line, and sinker, I thought. I did, but I didn't succeed in getting a passing grade. And it's a long story that I've told and I've written about. And I prefer not to go go through that now, because I've been doing this, talking for 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I don't. I want to bring it to a close, but I'll go through the rest of these pictures. That sun is actually also a picture from the Sawyer satellite, but years before, because the other one with the square just happened in October of 2018, and this one here, I got to go look up when that happened. But it was in, it was before 2015, I know that. Oh, it was 2013 when this happened. It was in the fall of 2013, I believe. So it was the beginning of the second hour. Well, I don't know if it was the second hour. Well, yeah, it would have been the second hour that T and Do were here, because they weren't here for the second hour. As it says in Revelation 11, the two witnesses leave during the first hour, the previous hour of those 2 hours. And 80-year periods seems to be what they represent, approximately 80-year periods. Not exactly. We can't nail down the next level to single years. I mean, we can nail down events when they said this and when they went here, and that. We can nail that down sometimes to exact dates and exact years, but T and Do don't do that. They're not telling the story. I am. No, well, I mean, they did say that they met in 1972, and they told us that story a number of times. And that one date they gave us was January 1st, 1973, was when they left Houston. And that's when their mission really started. Before that, it was preparatory for the mission. So, so let me get back to this green sun here with this T-shaped, this broad T-shaped object, or a flying saucer or Enterprise-looking object, USS Enterprise-looking object, was part of a video that I got from the BP Earthwatch site. And it wasn't the beginning of the video. The video wasn't about this, but it was one of the things he covered from the SOHO satellite. He was doing a lot of that at that time. And so actually the original picture of this had another object to the top left corner of the screen, not my screen, the top left corner of the sun, the green sun picture was you could see another partial object that if you took, actually if you looked at it with the frame being like, it would look like the arc part of the D, even. Or, I guess you could, imagine that. Because I think of that picture as T, and then Do was to the right of T. So that's Do coming back, sitting at the right hand of power. And T is his power. I know that as a fact. T is his older member. That's Jesus' heavenly father. Moses is older member, Jehovah. Adam's and Eunuchs and Abraham and anyone else during that time talked about as the Elohim or Adonai or Yahweh, depending on your pronunciation. Yeshua for Jesus. And some people make a lot of... I wonder if that person that wanted to be friends with me was the person that was talking all about the names and how important the names are. Because I didn't accept membership because he had a picture of a knife going through a heart in his logo. In his, I don't want to have anything to do with violence. I mean, people can. I'm not saying that was, he was really trying to talk about doing that to himself or somebody else, or or justifying that in some way. I don't like that kind of. It's just not. It's not positive in my mind. To relate weapons, even though T and Do talked. I mean, in the Revelations, it talks about he's got a sword, and the sword has got 2 edges on it. But the sword is his mouth. So his words are the ones his words are what deliver the edges. And I believe that means that it's what they say that's going to actually require us to cut our root system. That's why it's depicted as a sword. But not to use a sword on anybody else. or ourselves. You know, there's no justification for people cutting themselves and things like that because they are so angry. I mean, that's a sickness like a lot of sicknesses, and they can overcome it. Especially if they ask the next level for help. The next level might help them even if they're not asking in a direct way. Because the next level has ways of helping any human on the planet they want to. So, I'm not going to say more about that sun picture because I could get into all kinds of information about 2013, how this represented the beginning of the second hour and why I came up with that. And, well, because 1973 is when Tiendo officially said that they didn't say that way, but they repeated that story to us maybe 3 times. Of how they were in on December 25th, no, I'm getting mixed up, I'm sorry. I got mixed up with another event. How they left Houston on January 1st, 1973 and felt like they had next level helpers take a piano down from the upstairs room of the house that they were renting, where they had a little New Age center called No Place, KNOWPLACE, and that they had just for a couple months. That was, you know, preparatory for them to come to get ready to do their task of bringing updates to the Bible and fulfilling prophecy. And initially, that they had both come from the next level to do this task together. And then they realized a few months after that the prophecy that they were to fulfill was the 2 witnesses. But they knew there were 2 to do a task before that, before they saw that prophecy. So that prophecy didn't tell them that they were from the next level. They didn't like the idea of being, of having to tell people that they were that fulfillment of prophecy in Revelation 11. Because they said that whenever they were around somebody that would say that they were the reincarnation of Cleopatra, they would like run the other way in their mind, you know, from that person. Because and then they also realized, you know, thought that, you know, how come there were so many Cleopatras? You know, I thought there was just one Cleopatra, and yet they heard multiple people claiming to be Cleopatra. This is before they awakened. They would have those experiences. See, the rest of the pictures. Well, to the left of the square object is Comet Honda, after it was depixelated, which was taken, I don't know what that was, what camera took that picture. But this is not unusual for us to see depixelated. You know, NASA's got a team that are known to actually do things to the pictures that they get in order to make them sometimes more realistic, I think, because of the way the cameras work and the light and everything. But they also, I believe, also doctor them so that we can't see what's there. And that's why people are, saying that NASA is manufacturing things. None of this stuff has happened, or that, some of it hasn't happened. There's been no trips to the moon, no, the globe isn't round. It's like complete disconnect with reality. And so then beneath that comet Honda, those two little objects that are like tied together by that purple energy, which looks similar to the energy that's between that T object and the sun in the green one. Beneath that is comet Pan-STARRS, which happened came to perihelion around 2013. Well, not around. In April, early April of, it might have been late March, but early April of 2013. So it was on the anniversary of T and Doe and Crew's departure. I don't doubt that T left with them at that time, but it's possible that she didn't. We don't know how far away she went. When we talk about leaving, it doesn't mean that they didn't necessarily go immediately onto a spacecraft. They could have. They could have went into the lower level of the New Jerusalem spacecraft that's parked on the planet. That's the heaven. That's the first heaven. Anyway, so and that Pan-STARRS comet was most interesting because of the little dot that's in the front of it, which I heard a NASA employee actually showing me this picture, not in person but on the internet, talking about it, and he said he hoped that there was an explanation for that dot, whatever that was in front of the coma there of the Pan-STARRS comet. Pan-STARRS is it's either I think it's a ground-based telescope system. And you can see on that picture there's a little line going through the comet's tail, and that's an airplane. The next picture to the right is the Ceres lights, taken from one of the closest points of view from that the New Horizon, that the Dawn spacecraft is in orbit of Ceres right now, and has been. Last I heard about them was about a couple months ago, and they kept on getting closer and closer in their orbit. And that big object in the middle, the round one, actually looks like a 5 to 10 mile high tower, kind of like the Eiffel Tower in its shape, which you can see in the bigger blow-ups. And it looks to be like it's like either hovering or it's right on the ground, and you can see shadow underneath it, so that there's something potentially underneath it. And that's not the only thing on Ceres. There's also a pyramid that I haven't posted yet. That's also got this same kind of bright white material in association with it. And there's a big history on the reason why that. It was the Hubble telescope that saw that spacecraft like early 2000. And maybe 2004 or 5, and they ended up building spacecraft Dawn and launched it in 2007, and then 2015 is when Ceres these pictures were taken. And here's to the right of that is the picture of Las Vegas and Ceres from space. I don't know if that's the next level base inside. It might be a next level base. It might also be a next level mining operation to get an element. And there's a lot to say about that potential. That happened, like I said, in 2015. The same time as Pluto, the picture directly north of that picture, skipping over the little piece of the sun and the little square object, is Pluto, showing the four what NASA is calling spots, which I don't even know if this picture is, well, yeah, this picture is available on the NASA, on the Wikipedia site for Pluto. At least it was maybe a year ago when I last checked it. But and those series pictures are available on the series Wikipedia page. That Pan-STARRS comet picture, I didn't find on the Pan-STARRS page for that comet in 2013. There's been other Pan-STARRS comets because it's the same Earth telescope that's taking those pictures. And of course, they changed it. They changed, you know, the color scheme of it in order to bring out the different parts of the comet. So that might be end up being two objects there, right? Two little black dots. The same as that comet Honda. But they said that with the Hale-Bopp comet and this comet, it was actually two objects in rotation around one another, around a common center, like Pluto and Charon. I think it's Charon. Is that the closest moon to Pluto? There's a lot to say about Pluto, too. And both Ceres and Pluto, there's a lot to say about Revelation 6:8. Because they're both depicted in there. And that's the beginning of the green horse that I was able to calculate started in 2017, officially. But it was led up to starting in 2015. For 2015, 2016, and 2017 is the beginning of the green horse, which corresponds to the soundings of the angels as being the fifth angel, the sixth angel, and the seventh angel, having woes associated with them. So these are like those, like a repeat of those woes, even though the time frame, well, the time frame can in particular repeat itself. The symbolism can repeat itself too, and it often does. And there's at least, to most of the things, the big things that I saw in the Revelation study was that that there were seemed to be always three examples, at least three examples of one picture, one view, one description, one group of prophecies, or or one event. One event could have three different depictions in the Revelation. So, but Tiendo wrote in a movie script in 1982. They had a team write the movie script, but they gave them the information for the script. And that was that they said that the script was fiction based on the truth. Fiction based on the truth. And that Pluto in this movie was an Earth lab. So that inside of it there was a replica of the Earth, a huge replica of the Earth. And it had all kinds of screens associated with it that showed scenes on Earth, as if you could program those cameras of the 4 spacecrafts that were at the 4 corners of this Earth that's inside Pluto. You could program them so that they could show us on the screens all the hurricanes or tornadoes or a big city or something happening among the people in the city, and whatever detail they wanted. Because you would see that on the screens that are on the outside of this huge Earth object that was inside of Pluto. So, and those pictures are available on my Sawyer Heaven's Gate page. And then the picture on the far bottom right is of a shriveled up vehicle that still somehow has very little gray hair, except in the vehicle's beard. Because I don't dye it. A 67-year-old vehicle. Okay, let's see. I guess I went through that as requested in the chat room. Oh, okay, yeah. Both of them next to each other, yet during their individual zooms, in, on, and. Not a girl, man in cap. Or some kind of concept like that. Oh, this is another entry. Okay, I got mixed up. I thought that was the same one I was looking at before. And actually, I can't go down there yet. I have to go back up to where the order in which the questions came, so in case somebody doesn't want to stay around beyond that. Well, I've got to end this soon. Yeah, the day after had some good things in it. Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of stuff in the chat room here. No, there's not going to be another demonstration that I'm aware of. And we're not getting any new instructions. So, if the next level wants to make a demonstration out of the death of somebody that's serving them right now, that's their business. But I don't anticipate it. But I don't know what's going to happen to this soul and that's after this. I leave this vehicle. Wow, it's been. Okay. All right, I'm back to where I was. Oh, okay, you're not talking to me. That's good. I mean it's not good, but I mean, I do want to wrap it up for tonight. So I want to try to move through these a little faster than I normally would, and I can talk about them tomorrow if I do it tomorrow. I don't see why I can't. There's a big social divide from the chat room. Cub Dodge is saying there's a big social divide in our country in more than one way. Yep. What's up, Kyle? Okay. Any opinions? Kyle is saying in the chat room. Any opinions on the government, technology, and how we are being watched and documented every moment? Wow. Yeah. Sure. There's a lot of things I have opinions about. But my overall opinion is that the furthest we can get away from the government, the better. In every way. But still keep the laws, follow the laws, so that we don't end up in jail. Or you pay your taxes. Try not to get, don't go more than 2 or 3 miles above the speed limit. That was a procedure we had in the classroom. That's the only reason I say that. So that you don't get pulled over, because it's just better not to have any interface at all if you can help it. And any opinions on well, the government's completely failed in terms of being a democracy anymore. Not that it has, it's always had problems, okay? It just depended on whether you were in the right place in the wrong time, and the wrong place in the right time, and whatever, how that goes. But, depending on whether, what class you were in your wealth status, and the color of your skin, and your sexual orientation, and your beliefs, what religious beliefs you had, all those, what ethnicity was, whether you were in management or you were part of the labor crew, whether you were famous for one reason or another, whether, what your bloodline was, well, how much wealth you had, of course, is a big one. And so, that's all, in my opinion, in the book of Revelations. It's referred to as the therion in the Greek, which is a poisonous mammal. And poisonous because they teach to look to humans as the highest source in the universe. So the human medicine is the best medicine, the most popular, and what's grown to be the AMA and the CDC and the WHO and I believe the EU is the second beast that comes out of the first. The first comes out of the bottomless pit, which is the way that the next level opened up the underground prison cells that the Luciferian space alien fallen angels were sent to by the next level. And so let them out in the 1940s and 50s, primarily. and we're talking about physical events. The next level, we're talking about physical events as well. And technology, yeah, I have some things to say about that. That I think at this time that everything that's happening on the Earth and in its immediate near space around it, like the International Space Station, but that there's some dividing line between it and the moon and the rest of the solar system and universe, Milky Way and all that. That anything that happens on the Earth in that vicinity is human generated or space alien generated. And potentially photoshopped and CGI'd. Okay, so that means that UFOs that are sighted now, if that's true, which I have reason to believe it is, that are not next level. They're not next level spacecrafts. They're humans. And that would include holograms. That could be like Our Lady of Fatima, what was called Fatima sightings in 1912 approximately. And that happened, I think, in Italy, or maybe it was northern France, or Austria, or maybe it was just Italy. I get mixed up with that. But Tiendo said that was like a hologram made by the Luciferian space aliens, who are souls. But they grow new vehicles to take over, and then they also take over humans in the government. Because they take over anybody that they can use to influence people, and especially in the government and with technology, in order to get people to build spacecrafts and go out into space, because the Luciferians want to get off the planet. Because rumor has it, in there among them, that there's a recycling about to happen, and that they could get locked up underground again. And they want to avoid that at all costs, because it's no fun to be denied the freedom that they once had to circulate in the near heavens with spacecrafts working as student members in the next level, the evolutionary level above human. The physical evolutionary level above human. The physical evolutionary kingdom level above human. Because it's a many-membered kingdom. That's why it's described as a kingdom, with the chief of chiefs at the top. And that T was the chief administrator of the earth, and Do was captain working under T. But they were both old. They're both older members to us, and T is Do's older member. Okay, I kind of just tried to go through all that quickly because I know I've been through it many times in these live broadcasts. So I'm not going to say much more about that, but I'm going to copy this chat room, and I'll copy it into the descriptions, and then I'll potentially talk about those things tomorrow or the next live stream, whenever I do it. Because I don't guarantee when I'm going to do it next. I like to just keep it. I've been pretty regular at this time, but I skip a day here and there, and I'm probably going to have to skip Saturday, and maybe not. So I'll do it as much as I can, because I know there's more and more individuals are wanting to know more and more about Tiendo and the Heaven's Gate group. So that's what I am attempting to provide. Oh, okay, EC762 is saying, "Hey dude, long time now no see. I really thank you for the material you sent me a few weeks ago. Haven't had the time to read." Yeah, I want my email address is SawyerHG as in Heaven's Gate, SawyerHG as in SawyerHG@yahoo.com. And if you send me an email that I can mail you some packets, I've got about 4 gigabytes of data that include the audio tapes that we have and the videotapes, Beyond Human series, and Doe's book, the Tiendo book that Doe and the crew wrote, and my book is in there. And some other materials. So, same individual in the chat room is saying, "Why can't I give super chats? I'd love to donate to you." Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And you know, if it comes to a time to where I have a project or something and I'm looking for help with it financially, maybe I'll get back in touch. But right now I'm doing okay, and I've got a project underway, and I've got some backing for it, and I'm taken care of. So thank you for that. I don't really want to do that because some people think I'm doing this for the money, and I'm not. And I've never asked for money. I've never been on the. I don't have ads play on my the videos I make because I'm not doing it for the money, and I don't want to have some ads that are advertising things I don't believe in also, or want to support. And I don't want to have to actually step up to the a premium level and pay money to be on here also, which I think sometimes comes with, well, not with the advertising, I guess, but if I wanted to advance it to a more professional website that had more facility to it, I think there's some options in that regard, right? I haven't really explored that much at all with YouTube, or anybody else for that matter, because I haven't had any money for doing anything until recently, and I want to use that money that I do have now for that to try to make my own documentary, because that might be the only way that certain things come out to the public. Well, I'm sharing. I'm not holding anything back here. I don't ever hold anything back. I was tempted to hold things back at one time, early on when I was awakening. I was thinking, you know, I could keep this, talking about this, and then I'd be the only one that knew about it. I didn't think about it that detail, but when I saw the thought of holding something back, I recognized it as an influence, as a Luciferian booger. Because Next Level would, well, I mean, the Next Level did hold things back from us, but I'm not an older member. I don't have the right to hold things back. I can't judge, you know, when it's right to say something and when it's not, because I'm not leading a classroom. Even though I'm providing information, and some of that information is it's information about Tiendo and prophecy fulfillments from Jesus, and everything. So in that way, I'm leading in that respect. But there's a big difference between a teacher on the human level and a teacher in the next level. And I want to make that very clear that there are no teachers on the human level that are at all in the same ballpark with the next level members. Even the youngest member of the next level, according to Jesus, is greater than the greatest member of the human kingdom. So that means even like Stwody and those 38 are greater than the greatest human. Maybe not all the 38, because some of them, those say would have to come back to be in a human condition again in order to finish their overcoming. So, but I don't think Stwody was one of them. And nor was Odie or Jan Odie or Czech Odie or I'm not going to go down the list because you know, I don't know beyond that. Or Logo Odie. Or Sur Odie or Al Odie. I don't think. I think they're all in next level vehicles. I think they all overcame. And others too. So I just don't want to go name for name any more than that. I already did. Let's see. So well, the tapes of them going around the country, I don't have those tapes anyway. If you're talking about like Mark and Sarah, you can offer them something if you want for those tapes. They provided some of them, I think maybe even most of them, because I don't think there was a whole lot of them. But I could be wrong, because Rick Cody wasn't in my group the whole time when I was traveling around the country as overseer of a group of fellow students holding meetings in 1994. And he was in my group for a while, and he had his camera with him. That's why I'm in some of those videos. But those are actually on either the Sergio Myers, I don't know if that's the day after that somebody talked about. Oh yeah, I guess somebody else was answering that question, huh? Is there any way we can make things right? Not in the human kingdom, no. It's you can make things right with your older members of the next level, the creators of the earth and all the life forms. That's our job now. That's where we need to decide on where to put our loyalty to. I mean, if somebody doesn't know any better, and they're trying to make something right in the government and all, you know, power to them. Okay, I'm not judging anybody, but for somebody that's given the information that the next level was here and they left, and that this is a school and there's still opportunity to graduate, at least to go with them, to be saved as a soul or a spirit, when their spacecraft finally leaves the planet, which is depicted to happen during the time that was drawn out in the Revelation's prophecy in Revelation 6, 12 or something, towards the end of Revelations, when the heaven is removed from the earth. I think that is depicting when the New Jerusalem spacecraft, that is the heaven on earth, not on earth, but above the earth, where souls and spirits can be saved to, or to be brought back for another experience, is a spacecraft. And that spacecraft can actually leave. And that's going to happen in our near future. I don't know how far away. Could be very quickly. It could be 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years. You know, I don't think it's going to be more than that. And I have reasons for saying that are based on T and Do, what they said, and based on things in the Bible. But I don't know exact dates, and I don't even want to know, because if somebody told me an exact date, I would assume that they were a Luciferian, because there's no reason for T and Do to give a servant an exact date that they might not even have they don't necessarily have an exact day, although there does look like there is an indication of a time when there is going to be an exact day for something to happen, as it talks about in Revelation chapter 9, I believe. They actually describe the time as being a year, a month, a day and an hour? No. Yeah, they describe those 4 terms all in one statement. And I never saw them do that in the prophecy before. I wonder if hour was part of that, because then it could have all been representative of a day being 1,000 years, and the human kingdom being a day to them. But they're talking in our time frame, but a lot of times it has multiple meanings. All the prophecy seems to have a number of interpretations that can all be at degrees of accuracy, even in general terms, even in more symbology, because it can all be related to the past, because it all came from the same direction of the next levels, creating this garden experiment that's lasted for a little over 6,000 years now. Right, you mentioned the day after, right. I mean, there's things to be gleaned from all the documentaries, even though a lot of the things are negative. The good thing about the negative things is that I've tried to critique most of them on my blog, sawyerhg.wordpress.com. But actually, there's some that I haven't really critiqued that well that I should do. I should critique them best I can. I'll put it on my list. I was referring to the chat room talking about the best documentary. So then number 44 also said, mostly because all the former student interviews. Yeah, the day after is kind of cool, isn't it? Because day could be translated as a time period. That's the way it's used in the Book of Revelations. And sometimes it's used as a day of 24 hours, I believe. I can show. Well, good. I'm glad the other individuals are helping Kyle with that. So number 44 asked in the chat room, Sawyer, do you know anything else about Dan Sody's Bible project, like how he was supposed to approach such a large undertaking? No, I don't. I don't have any idea. And just because I said it in that way, didn't mean that he was going to like I don't think it meant that they were going to go word for word and like reinterpret it. Everything. I think they were just going to probably show what led up to their arrival. Because what else would be, it wouldn't be used, it doesn't make any sense that it would be more than that, because it would be no use to the students to go through everything that's in the Bible, because everything in the Bible wasn't considered to be accurate by T and Do. They said that the Moses materials were tampered with. And they said that the Jesus materials, the Next Level worked very hard to keep accurate. But only the Jesus materials that they were referring to were what Jesus actually said in the Gospels. So it would be seen as the red letter edition. But we can get a little misguided by that also if we go outside the Gospels. But T and Do did pay attention to the other materials, like the lost books of the Bible and the Nag Hammadi library and the Essene Christian faith materials and other Essene materials, and T and Do didn't pay attention to those, but Do did after T left her vehicle. But when I say that, it's because Do was attentive to instructions he was getting from T. But he had to ask T if this was right to do or this was right to do. And so he didn't necessarily get detailed instructions, saying, okay, now expose to the classroom the Dead Sea Scrolls, and now expose to the classroom the UFO phenomena and what, in the Book of Aztec, New Mexico, the crash that happened there, in that area. And so that's not the way it worked. Do would ask questions and he would get a sense of T's answer, whether it was, and then he would sometimes he would sit on it a little bit, for a time, if he didn't feel like he got a clear answer. And it wasn't like well, it can be just like words in his head, but it's not the same thing as, it's not like a big demanding voice. It's not something that gives you an instruction on what you must do, or that you should do. It's always given as like it's okay to do that. That's okay to do. That's not okay. I mean, if it's not okay to do, a lot of times Do didn't get anything about that. What he would get no answer to that question. And sometimes he'd get a sense that that wasn't the right question, so then he'd go back and think about what he was asking and think about how, what he meant by that. So in other words, the Next Level runs everything to where the individuals that are the employees of the older members in the Next Level corporation that they compared to a corporation one time, and an astronaut training program on Earth to the classroom, they have to work to try to feel like they've got an accurate instruction and an accurate indication of the way that their older member would think about any one subject or any one idea or concept or anything. And that just shows you that the Next Level does not want robots, because they can make robots all day long to do these. I mean, they can make robots to talk to people in the world if they wanted to. They could talk to everybody in their head if they wanted to. They don't invade everybody's head. They don't try to read us. They didn't even try to read the students that wanted to be read, like read their mind, which they're capable of doing. But they didn't do that. They said they didn't do that. And I believe them. Although they could tell some of what some of us were thinking, because they would get the thoughts and they would run them, and they would recognize they were thoughts that they never had before. You know, that weren't part of their package, their vehicle. Their vehicle's, you know, thoughts, the vehicle's spirit. And so they would run those thoughts off. So I don't know more about that Bible task that Dan Stwody got, except that that task seems to be depicted in Revelation chapter 10 as the little book. It's actually a little Bible. It means bibliolio, something like that, in the Greek, and it means little Bible instead of little book, actually, as opposed to the main book in Revelation 5 that's talked about, that's written from within the throne. So that's Tiendo's Heaven's Gate book that I talked about as being the purple book that the hard copies are for sale through the Heaven's Gate website, through Mark and Sarah. You know, I have no affiliation with them. I don't work with them. I mean, I will ask them questions if I have questions that they can answer. And I point, when people want to buy that book, the hard copy, I send them to them, even though I have a few of them. But they sent them to me years ago. And I wouldn't feel right about selling them unless if some reason someone couldn't get one from Mark and Sarah. And I would talk to them about it first. I've already done that with somebody that wanted to buy a couple of those books. But that book is available for free off the Heaven's Gate website. If you go to the book, and then you go to the bottom of the website, the pages, and or maybe the last one in the book, there's a link there where you can download a zip file that's in text format. And I also send that to people in the packets. So I'll go to the next question in the chat room. If you're talking about the Beyond Human tapes, yes, I'm in the first with Junodi, is the female vehicle in those tapes at that time. And it's me without any hair on my face or my head, hardly. When I was still on the wagon, before I fell off the wagon. Oh, now I see what you're saying. We're going, not a girl. Well, she has a female vehicle. I mean, a Junodi, the soul Junodi, who's not male or female, so he's correct, is the individual on that Beyond Human tape and using the female vehicle. Definitely not a girl vehicle, you know, in terms of the age of the vehicle. But let me see. I don't mean to be picking on the word girl. It doesn't make any difference. I just get in the habit of, like, every word that I see that I can try to make more accurate. I do that. I'm sorry. It's one of my idiosyncrasies. That's a word that came from Tiendo to describe our vehicle's idiosyncrasies that we don't need to correct each other about. It's like Jesus said, swing at a gnat, swallow a camel, or why take the the twig out of your neighbor's eye or your brother's eye when you got a log in your own. Not talking to anybody in particular. I'm just saying that. Okay. Okay, so I've got a question from Taj, T-A-J, Abbott. This is why I was asking about your opinions on the Little Uzi Vert controversy with M&S suing the rapper. Still waiting for you to get back to me on that. Haha. Oh, okay. Possibly it could refer to the video of you and Stwody doing a radio interview. They pushed you a lot on celibacy, etc. I think that was me and Odie and Rick Odie, actually, in that radio interview, in that film. Because that was in Portland, Oregon, I think, when Odie and I were overseers of the group, putting on meetings there, and Rick Odie was assigned to be with us by Doe. And so we were looking for publicity for the meeting that we put on there in 1994, and for advertising. And so we got on that radio show. So maybe that clears up what your question was that was related to Little Uzi Vert controversy. I can't see how it would relate to that time. So maybe you're talking about another time, another radio interview. I don't remember doing a radio interview ever with Stwody, so I only did those Beyond Human tapes with Stwody. Maybe you thought it was a radio interview. Yeah, I think that. No, oh, in the chat room. Okay, no, you were talking about how more people recently coming to find out about Heaven's Gate. Oh, yeah, that started, well, it started, well, oh, that was the podcast, the 10-part podcast. Yeah, the name of the podcast was Heaven's Gate. It's on the iTunes website and the Stitcher website, I guess. I haven't looked for it on Stitcher, but the Stitcher was the, I think, part of the, maybe the funding for it. I don't know if that's the way it worked exactly, but it was in coordination with them. And it was 10 podcasts, so I guess each one was like an hour long. Well, maybe less. Maybe it was only 30 minutes. And then with commercials, even less than that, of course. But I was in that podcast, but I wasn't with anybody else. I didn't have any other, because that just happened in 2017, in the fall of about this time of year, or even a little before this, in 2017. So I wasn't with anybody during those parts of it that I participated in. I was interviewed twice by them, by that crew. So So I want to close, I guess, at this point. I've gone 3.5 hours almost, and I'm worn out. So I'm not going to waste any time at this point with saying goodnight. Oh, now, right now, somebody just came in to watch on this broadcast, and I'm about to close it up. Sorry, whoever that is, if you're somebody that was looking forward to hearing more about tea and dough from my experiences. I guess you can watch. You know, we covered a lot of things. I'll just tell you what we covered a lot of. I went through a lot of the individuals that were in the class that had dropped out and then came back into the class, and some that dropped out and didn't come back into the class. So I spent a lot of time on that. Talked about the demonstration again, as I did more thoroughly, though. If you look at the descriptions of my last video, there's a lot in there, if you didn't hear that. So I'm going to have to say goodnight for now, and hope that we can talk again tomorrow, the next day, or whenever it feels right to do, which I've been trying to do it every night if I can. So, good night.